In today's video, I want to cover an overview, setup, and configuration of the Zimaboard, which is one of the most interesting and useful products I've seen in a while. This will appeal to home and DIY users that are looking for a versatile yet powerful device that you can use as a Plex media server, NAS, home assistant, or router without spending a fortune. If you're new to the Zimaboard and want to find out more about this device, then stick around for the rest of this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and give this a like if you find the information useful. When the Zimaboard first came out and it was touted as an alternative to a Raspberry Pi, it didn't seem all that exciting to me, but as I began to look at everything you get and what it was attempting to do, I saw a huge potential for the DIY and all of us to get a turnkey solution for a lot of different projects. As I thought about the hardware specs, the price, and their approach to software, this product made a lot of sense and, as I discovered, was actually a great value. As I'm constantly doing videos on routers, NAS storage units, media servers, I decided to pick one of these up to see how well it performs doing some of these tasks and get the first-hand experience on the hardware. Let's first cover the specs of the device and what comes in the box. The device comes ready to run. The design is completely fanless and, depending on the model, comes with either a 2-core or 4-core N-series Celeron mobile processor that has a TDP of 6 watts. As this processor has Intel HD graphics, it supports Intel QuickSync video, making this really ideal for hardware-supported video decoding such as Plex. The device can be purchased with either 2GB, 4GB, or 8GB memory configurations. The 4GB and 8GB versions have a 4-core processor and come with 32GB of eMMC storage, while the 2GB version comes with only 2 cores and only 16GB of eMMC storage. Given their Docker-based approach, assuming you're going to run the CasaOS that's preloaded, buying the 2GB version didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. However, if you're planning to run your own OS or will have very limited use, the 2GB might work out for you. As I wanted some flexibility to run a couple of these apps at the same time, I opted to get the 8GB version. In terms of ports, it's pretty well equipped and comes with 2 USB 3 ports, 2 1GB LAN ports, a mini display port, so that you can attach an external monitor. I picked up an adapter for about $9 on Amazon, so I was able to get the display output. On the other side, it has 2 SATA ports and 1 power connector. If you want to install an external drive, the kit comes with 1 combo adapter that provides power and SATA for 1 drive. As there's only 1 power connector, you'll need to get their optional 2-drive adapter if you want to power 2 external devices. Third-party drive mounts are also available for this device, so you can keep your installation pretty clean. There's also a PCI x 4 slot, so you can run add-in cards such as SATA controllers, Wi-Fi USB controllers, 10G network cards. So let's plug in a 1TB SSD so we can later see how the system uses the drive. Now that we've covered the hardware, let's go through the setup and configuration. Using your browser, log into CasaOS.local. And you'll get to a landing page. Click on Go and create your account. And when you're done creating the account, it'll take you to the main page. Taking a quick look around at the main page, you see a series of widgets. If we look at the storage, we can see that currently the system only seeing the 32GB of internal storage. But if we look at the Drive tab, we can see that the external drive that we attached is listed, but not currently being used as storage. Going back to the Storage tab, there's an option to create more storage for the system, and if we click on it, we now have the option to add the SSD to the system. I'll just give it a name, select the drive, and then select either Create or Format and Create, depending on your needs. As I want to erase what's on this drive, I'm going to hit Format and Create, and in just a short time, you'll see the storage has been added to the System Storage tab. Going back to the main page, you have a widget settings, where you can enable the widgets that you want to see on your main screen. If we click on the Files icon, you'll launch the typical file manager for your default folders, as well as any other locations such as your external SSD. From the main screen, you can see a Settings icon on the top menu. And if we click on that, we have some options such as enabling your search bar, changing your default search engine, language, and the default UI port. You can also change out your wallpaper, disable recommended apps, disable auto mount USB drives, And most importantly, it will tell you when there's an update. Let's click on Update, which shows us the change log and then allows us to upgrade the device. It'll run through the update process and it'll let you know when it's finished. Going back to the main page, let's click on the App Store to see some of the options that are available. They offer many of the popular choices for the home enthusiasts, such as SyncThing, Unify Controller, NextCloud, Home Assistant, Plex, Emby, JellyFin, and a whole lot more. You also have the option to install other apps that are not currently in the store using the custom install option. I plan on doing a detailed video on some of these apps such as Plex, NextCloud, and Home Assistant, so let me know in the comments below if there's any interest in these or any other apps. I did run into one minor issue. Using the File Manager app, you have the option to add locations such as connecting to Dropbox or connecting to Google Drive. In addition, you also have the option of connecting to a network storage device, which is really what I wanted to do. However, when I clicked on Connect Storage, typed in the IP address, and put in my username and password, it gave me an error message saying that special characters can cause security problems, and it would not let me log into any of the devices. All the devices with accounts where I use a special character in the password, which for me is all of them, it wouldn't let me log into those devices. I was able to go back to my storage units and create an additional account with a password that didn't contain a special character, and that worked. But I found it really strange that a special character normally recommended in secure passwords wasn't allowed. It's not a showstopper and there is a workaround, but hopefully they'll get this addressed in a future update. I didn't think I'd really like this unit, and I was more curious than anything else. But as it turns out, it's a very cool universal device that's really fun to work with and extremely powerful and versatile. It's not perfect, and the external SATA connectors and the PCI expansion slots are a little awkward unless you find a way to mount them. But overall, I think this is an incredible unit, especially if you're using it as a router, media playback, media server, storage unit, or home assist. You can mount this thing behind a TV on an entertainment center or somewhere in the closet. The power draw is extremely small and it has plenty of expansion. The price is amazing given what you get. It comes loaded with CasaOS, which allows you to run a bunch of different apps like cloud storage, Plex, Home Assistant, and all this for around $200. I'll be pushing this device further, and we'll be creating a Plex server along with several other apps to see how much this thing can really do. So make sure you subscribe, and if there's something you want me to test, be sure and post it in the comments, as I'll put it in the queue and try to do a video on it. Anyway, that's about it for today's video, and I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.